Sunday dinners at my parents' house were a ritual I rarely missed. The aroma of pot roast filled their small dining room as we gathered around the table exchanging casual banter. Then my father cleared his throat and dropped the bombshell. "Chandler, your brother Jake and his kids need to move in with you." My mother nodded enthusiastically while Jake smirked. I felt my stomach drop but kept my face neutral. What they did not know was that I had sold my house a month ago. I simply smiled and said nothing. Before I tell you what happened when they showed up at my doorstep with a moving truck full of belongings, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more real-life stories about family, dynamics, and standing your ground. The relationship I have with my family has always been complicated. From an early age, it was clear that my older brother Jake was the golden child. 4 years, my senior Jake received every advantage, every excuse, and every second chance. When we were kids, he would break my toys and claim it was an accident. My parents would tell me to share better. When he forgot his homework, my mom would drive it to school. When I forgot mine, it was a learning opportunity about responsibility. This pattern continued through our teenage years. Jake got caught drinking at 16. Dad had a man-to-man talk with him, no punishment. When I came home 10 minutes past curfew at 17, I was grounded for 2 weeks. Jake wrecked his first car 3 months after getting it. They bought him another one. I saved for 3 years to buy my own. "You need to understand your brother," my mother would say. "He struggles more than you do." What exactly Jake struggled with was never clearly defined. He was athletic, good-looking, and naturally charismatic. What he lacked was any sense of consequences. College followed the same script. Jake attended 3 different universities, never graduating from any of them. My parents paid every bill, covered every failure. I worked part-time through school, maintained a scholarship, and graduated with minimal debt. After college, I threw myself into my career in information technology. Starting at entry-level technical support, I worked 60-hour weeks, earned certifications on weekends, and climbed steadily upward. By 30, I was a senior systems architect at a respected firm in Chicago. 12 years of disciplined saving and careful financial planning allowed me to purchase my house in a nice Chicago suburb. Nothing extravagant, but it was mine. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a small yard, and most importantly, something I had earned entirely on my own merit. I took immense pride in that house. It represented everything my parents never thought I could achieve. Meanwhile, Jake met Natalie in his late 20s. She was genuinely wonderful, smart, kind, and far too good for him. Everyone thought she might be the one to finally make Jake grow up. They married quickly and soon had 2 beautiful children, Anthony, now 7, and Sophia, 5. For a brief time, Jake seemed to be settling down. He started a small business selling sports memorabilia. My parents helped with startup costs, naturally. Things appeared stable for about 3 years. Then the pattern reasserted itself. Jake started gambling, first small bets on games, then larger sums at casinos. He took out loans against his business. He made risky investments without research. When creditors started calling, my parents bailed him out twice. The final straw for Natalie came when she discovered Jake was having an affair with a woman who worked at a local bar. The divorce was messy, but Natalie was methodical. She documented Jake's gambling, his absences, his failure to contribute financially. She gained primary custody of the children. Jake was limited to supervised visits every other weekend. After the divorce, Jake moved back in with my parents. They converted their home office into his bedroom. This was supposed to be temporary, just until he got back on his feet. That was 14 months ago. As for me, my career continued to advance. Last month, I received an offer from a major tech company in Seattle. The position came with a substantial salary increase and exciting new responsibilities. After careful consideration, I accepted. The timing couldn't have been better. The Chicago housing market was hot, and I sold my house for significantly more than I had paid. I put a deposit on a modern apartment in Seattle's downtown and made arrangements to work remotely during the transition. I gave notice at my apartment's scheduled movers and planned to spend 2 weeks in a hotel before flying to Seattle. I hadn't told my family about these developments yet. With my brother living with them and the complicated family dynamics, I wanted to wait until everything was finalized. I planned to tell them at our next Sunday dinner. Unfortunately, they had plans of their own. That Sunday started like any other monthly dinner at my parents' home. I arrived at 5 o'clock, bottle of wine in hand, expecting the usual meal and conversation. But something felt off from the moment I stepped through the door. My mother was overly cheerful, my father unusually attentive. Jake, who typically sulked through these gatherings, was animated and engaged. The dining table was set with the good china, not the everyday plates. The meal consisted of all my favorite foods: my mother's famous pot roast garlic, mashed potatoes, and homemade apple pie for dessert. This level of effort was typically reserved for birthdays and major holidays. "So, son, how has work been?" my father asked as we settled around the table. "Busy as usual," I replied, deliberately vague. I wanted to tell them about Seattle on my own terms when the time felt right. "That big house of yours must be a lot to maintain for just one person," my mother commented, exchanging glances with my father. "It is sometimes," I said cautiously. My father launched into a lengthy monologue about the importance of family and how we all need to support each other through difficult times. My mother nodded enthusiastically at every point. Jake kept stealing glances at me, a strange half-smile on his face. As my mother served the pie, my father finally got to the point. "Chandler, we need to discuss something important." He began, his tone serious but practiced. "Your brother has been going through a rough patch since the divorce." "Dad, I can speak for myself," Jake interrupted, though it was clearly part of their rehearsed approach. "Look, Chandler, the landlord at my apartment complex is selling the building. All tenants have to move out by the end of the month." I took a bite of pie, saying nothing. "I have been looking everywhere," Jake continued, "but with my credit situation after the divorce and business issues, nobody will rent to me without an enormous deposit." "Which is ridiculous," my mother interjected. "They act like he is some kind of criminal." My father cleared his throat. "So we have been discussing solutions as a family, and we think we have found the perfect answer." The way he emphasized "as a family" irked me, considering I had been excluded from these discussions. "Your brother and the kids will move in with you," my father announced, as if bestowing a great gift. "You have that big house with those empty bedrooms. It makes perfect sense." Jake jumped in before I could respond. "It will just be for a few months until I can get back on my feet. The kids love you, and they would have their own rooms instead of sharing the guest room here." "We thought it through carefully," my mother added. "The school district for your house is excellent for the children. Jake can use your spare bedroom, and the kids can each have their own room. I would contribute to groceries, of course," Jake said, though we all knew that was unlikely. "But what about—" I began, but my father cut me off. "Now, I know you value your privacy, son, but family comes first. We all need to make sacrifices sometimes." The conversation continued without my input. They had clearly made this decision without considering whether I would agree. Jake talked about which bedroom he preferred. My mother discussed how they would arrange furniture. My father mentioned they would help with the move that coming Saturday, just 5 days away. "Oh, I almost forgot," my mother said, reaching into her purse. She pulled out a set of keys. "I had copies made from the set we used when you were on that business trip last year. This way, Jake can start moving some smaller things during the week while you are at work." I stared at the keys, a perfect symbol of their complete disregard for my boundaries. They had not asked if I wanted house guests. They had not considered my plans or preferences. They had simply decided what would happen in my homemade copies of my keys and expected me to accept it. In that moment, I could have told them about Seattle. I could have explained that I had sold the house. I could have ended their plans immediately. But something stopped me. Years of being overlooked, of having my achievements minimized, while Jake's failures were excused, crystallized into a single thought. They need to learn that actions have consequences. So instead of speaking up, I nodded noncommittally and asked, "When exactly were you planning to move in this Saturday?" my father said. "I have already rented a moving truck. Jake does not have much furniture, just his clothes and the kids' things. I told Anthony and Sophia they will have a nice big house to live in now," Jake added. "They are really excited." I thought about those innocent children caught in the middle of adult failures. A twinge of guilt hit me, but I reminded myself that this situation was not of my making. "Well, I guess we should discuss some house rules then," I said, playing along. The relief on their faces was palpable. They had expected resistance and were delighted to find none. For the next hour, we discussed living arrangements, though I was mostly silent, as they planned how they would rearrange my life. As I drove home that night, a strange calm settled over me. For the first time in my life, I was about to stand my ground in a way my family could not ignore. The week that followed was surreal. I continued packing my remaining belongings, working remotely, and preparing for my move to Seattle. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed constantly with messages from Jake. Monday morning, can you clear out some closet space in the master bedroom? I need room for my stuff. Monday evening, the kids want to know if they can paint their rooms. Is that cool? Tuesday, I think I might move my exercise equipment into your home office. You can set up your computer in the dining room, right? Each message displayed his entitlement and assumption that my home was now his to rearrange. I responded minimally, usually just acknowledging receipt of the messages. My parents called twice to discuss logistics. My mother wanted to know my work schedule so they could coordinate the move without bothering me. My father asked if I could contribute to the moving truck rental. I deflected both conversations, saying we would figure it out on Saturday. On Wednesday, Jake sent a photo of Anthony and Sophia surrounded by packed boxes with the caption, "The kids are so excited about their new home." Their innocent smiles sent another wave of guilt through me, but I reminded myself that their disappointment would be Jake's responsibility, not mine. Thursday morning, I met with the new owners of my house, a lovely couple named Maria and Thomas Rivera. They had two teenage daughters and were excited to start their new chapter in the home I had lovingly maintained. I handed over the keys, signed the final paperwork, and officially relinquished ownership. That evening, I moved my last suitcases into an extended stay hotel about 20 minutes from my former house. I had arranged to work fully remote until my move to Seattle the following week. Friday brought a flurry of additional texts from Jake about his plans for our living arrangement. I think we should rotate cooking duties. The kids and I will take Mondays and Wednesdays. Do you mind if my friends come over Saturday night to watch the game? The kids will be with Natalie. Can you stock the fridge before we get there? The kids like those dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets. Each message assumed a level of cooperation and accommodation I had never agreed to. Each displayed Jake's lifelong pattern of expecting others to adapt to his needs, while making minimal effort himself. By Friday night, my parents and Jake were finalizing their plans for the move. My father texted that they would arrive around 10 a.m. on Saturday. Jake sent a message saying he had hired a babysitter for a few hours Saturday evening so we could celebrate properly with beers and pizza. I set my alarm for 8 a.m., wanting to be in position well before their arrival. I barely slept, mentally rehearsing what I would say and how I would handle the inevitable fallout. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. I drove to my former neighborhood and parked my car a block away. From a coffee shop across the street, I could see my old house while remaining out of sight. At 9:45, I took a position on a bench in the small park diagonal to the house, sipping my coffee and waiting. At 10:17, a rental moving truck turned onto the street, followed by my parents' SUV. Jake was driving the truck, my father in the passenger seat. My mother was driving the SUV with Anthony and Sophia visible in the back seat. They parked directly in front of the house. Jake jumped out of the truck, energetic and smiling. My father joined my mother and the children on the sidewalk. Anthony was clutching a small backpack shaped like a superhero. Sophia was holding a stuffed unicorn. Jake bounded up to the front door and rang the doorbell. They waited. He rang again, longer this time. After a third attempt, my mother reached into her purse and produced the copied key. Jake took it and tried to unlock the door. The confusion on his face was visible even from my position. He tried again, jiggling the key, then examining it closely. My father stepped forward, taking the key and attempting it himself. That was my cue. I stood up, took a deep breath, and walked calmly across the street toward them. "It will not work," I called out as I approached. 5 heads whipped around in unison. "Chandler, where have you been?" my mother demanded. "We have been trying to reach you all morning." My phone had indeed been buzzing in my pocket, but I had intentionally not checked it. "The key will not work," I repeated, stopping a few feet away from them. "I sold this house a month ago. The new owners changed the locks yesterday." The silence that followed was profound. Jake's mouth literally hung open. My father's face reddened. My mother's eyes widened in disbelief. "What do you mean you sold the house?" Jake finally sputtered. "You cannot do that." "I most certainly can, and I did," I replied calmly. "I accepted a new position in Seattle. I am moving next week." But what about us?" Jake gestured wildly to the moving truck. Where are we supposed to go? That is not my problem, I said. You made plans to move into my house without asking me. You assumed I would rearrange my life to accommodate yours. You were wrong. You selfish little. My father began stepping toward me, finger raised accusingly. Dad, I interrupted sharply. I am not being selfish. I am living my life. I am making my own decisions about my property and my future just as you have made yours. But the children, my mother pleaded, pulling Anthony and Sophia closer to her sides. They need a home. They have a home with Natalie, I pointed out. And Jake had plenty of time to find a new apartment. Instead, he assumed he could just move in with me. Jake's face twisted with rage. You did this on purpose. You knew we were coming today. Yes, I did, I admitted. Because for once you needed to experience the consequences of your actions instead of having someone else fix everything for you. We are your family, my father shouted, attracting attention from neighbors. You do not turn your back on family. Family works both ways, I replied. Family respects boundaries. Family asks permission instead of making demands. Jake's face reddened as his anger escalated. Where am I supposed to go now? What am I supposed to tell my kids? Perhaps the truth, I suggested. That you made plans without confirming them first. At that moment, the front door opened. Maria Rivera appeared looking concerned. Is everything okay out here? She asked. I heard shouting. Everything is fine, I said. Maria, these are my parents and my brother. They were just leaving. You bought his house? My mother asked Maria, sounding bewildered. Yes, we closed yesterday, Maria confirmed. Are you friends of Chandler's? We are his family, my father said stiffly. Oh, I see, Maria said clearly, sensing the tension. Well, we are just getting settled in. Please let us know if you need anything, Chandler. Thank you, Maria, I replied. I appreciate it. As Maria went back inside, the reality of the situation finally seemed to sink in for my family. The house was sold. There would be no moving in. Their plans had collapsed entirely. So that is it, Jake asked, his voice breaking slightly. You are just going to leave us with nowhere to go. You have somewhere to go, I pointed out. You have been living with Mom and Dad for over a year. That arrangement can continue. But we told the kids. My mother began looking down at Anthony and Sophia, who were watching this adult drama with confused expressions. I am sorry that you made promises to them that you could not keep, I said sincerely. That was unfair to them. I knelt down to eye level with my niece and nephew. Anthony, Sophia, I am sorry things are confusing right now. I am moving to a different city for a new job, but I will video chat with you and maybe you can visit me sometime. Sophia's lower lip trembled. But Daddy said we were going to live in your big house. I know he did, sweetheart, I said gently. But there was a misunderstanding. You will need to stay with Grandma and Grandpa a little longer. I stood up, facing my family again. I need to go now. I have a lot to do before my move next week. So you are just going to walk away? My father demanded. Yes, I said simply. Just like you all walked all over my boundaries. The difference is I am telling you to your face instead of going behind your back. With that, I turned and walked back to my car. Behind me, I could hear my mother crying, my father cursing, and Jake kicking the tire of the moving truck. I felt terrible about the children being caught in the middle, but a lifetime of enabling had to stop somewhere. As I drove away, I felt a mixture of guilt relief and something unexpected pride. For the first time in my life, I had stood firm against my family's expectations and demanded respect. It hurt, but it was necessary. The immediate aftermath was as explosive as I had expected. My phone blew up with angry calls and texts. My father left voicemails calling me selfish and ungrateful. My mother sent tearful messages about family loyalty. Jake alternated between rage and manipulation, first threatening legal action over what I have no idea, then pleading that his children would suffer because of me. I responded to none of them. Instead, I focused on finalizing my move to Seattle. I shipped the last of my belongings, closed my Chicago bank accounts, and prepared for my new beginning. The first few weeks in Seattle were challenging. Despite the excitement of my new job and the beauty of the city, I struggled with doubts. Had I been too harsh? Should I have found another way to establish boundaries? The image of Anthony and Sophia's confused faces haunted me. During a particularly low moment, 3 weeks after the confrontation, I received an unexpected call from Natalie, my brother's ex-wife. "I heard what happened," she said without preamble. "Jake has been telling everyone who will listen that you abandoned him and the kids without warning." "That is not exactly how it happened," I replied cautiously. I know she surprised me by saying, "Your mother called me in tears, asking if the kids could stay with me full-time while Jake figures things out. She told me everything. And what do you think I asked, bracing for condemnation? I think it was about time someone stopped enabling him," Natalie said firmly. "When we were married, your parents undermined every attempt I made to hold Jake accountable. They paid bills he should have paid, made excuses for commitments he broke, covered for his absences. Nothing changed because he never had to change." Her words were validating, but did little to ease my guilt about the children. "How are Anthony and Sophia?" I asked. "They are confused, but they are resilient," she assured me. "I have full custody now anyway. Jake only had them on weekends. Now he is seeing them at your parents' house under their supervision. It is actually more stable for them." After that conversation, I began rebuilding my life in Seattle with less guilt weighing me down. My new job challenged and energized me. I made friends among my colleagues. I explored my new city and gradually settled into my apartment. 3 months after the moving truck incident, my mother called. I almost did not answer, but something compelled me to pick up. "Chandler," she said, her voice subdued. "How are you?" I am. "Well," I replied neutrally. "How are you and Dad?" "We are managing," she said. "Your father is still angry, but he is coming around. Jake found a job finally. Part-time at a sporting goods store, but it is something that is good to hear," I said. I owe you an apology," she continued, surprising me. "We should have asked you about Jake moving in. We should not have made copies of your key or made plans without your consent." It was the first time I could remember my mother acknowledging any wrongdoing regarding how they treated me versus Jake. "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "It means a lot." "Would it be all right if I called you sometimes?" she asked hesitantly. "Just to chat. No pressure about anything else." "I would like that," I said honestly. Over the next few months, those calls became regular. My mother and I developed a new kind of relationship, one based on mutual respect rather than expectations and obligations. My father eventually joined some of those calls, gruffly at first, but gradually warming up. Jake took longer to come around. According to my mother, he had been forced to face some hard truths. Without my house as a bailout option, he had to take responsibility for himself. He continued working at the sporting goods store, eventually moving into a small one-bedroom apartment. On weekends, when he had the kids, they slept in the living room while he took the bedroom. 6 months after moving to Seattle, I invited my parents to visit. To my surprise, they accepted. The visit was slightly awkward, but ultimately healing. They saw my new life, my success, and seemed to develop a new respect for me. One evening during their visit, as we watched the sunset from my apartment balcony, my father said something unexpected. "We did you a disservice, son," he admitted, staring into his coffee mug rather than meeting my eyes. "We always thought Jake needed more help, more support. We did not realize we were teaching him not to stand on his own feet. And we did not see that by treating you differently, we were sending the message that we did not believe in you as much," my mother added. "But look at what you have accomplished on your own." That conversation did not erase decades of unequal treatment, but it was a start. A recognition of the pattern and its harmful effects was the first step towards something healthier. I have maintained my boundaries since then. I stay in touch with my family, but on my terms. I video chat with Anthony and Sophia regularly. I send them birthday and Christmas gifts, but I make no apologies for living my own life and making my own decisions. The hardest lesson I have learned through all of this is that sometimes true love means allowing people to face the consequences of their actions. Enabling harmful patterns out of a misguided sense of family duty helps no one. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to stop catching them when they fall. That does not mean abandoning family. It means establishing healthy boundaries and expecting mutual respect. It means loving people enough to believe they can rise to challenges rather than shielding them from every difficulty. My relationship with my family is still evolving. There are good days and difficult ones, but we are building something more honest and balanced than what we had before. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members? How did you handle the guilt and doubt that often comes with standing your ground? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories about family dynamics, personal growth, and finding your own path. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to stop enabling harmful patterns. Take care of yourselves and each other.